All right, so today we're going to dive into something uh, pretty heavy.
Yeah.
A case that's really making waves and got everyone talking.
Right.
It involves some serious allegations against two really big names in the music world, Jay-Z and Sean Diddy Combs.
Yeah. And what I think is really interesting about this whole thing is that it goes way back,
Oh, yeah.
like way back to 2000. You're
Wow.
talking over 2 decades ago.
It's crazy how something from so long ago can resurface like this.
I know, right?
So essentially, we have this woman, Jane Doe, who's claiming that both Jay-Z and Diddy assaulted her at a party.
Yeah.
She was 13 years old at the time.
That's heavy stuff.
It really is. And the source we're looking at here, this legal text, it really digs into all the layers of this case.
Oh, yeah.
It gets complicated. Like, where's the line between what really happened and how memory can play tricks on you?
It's fascinating, right? Memory isn't like a perfect recording. It changes over time, like you can't just rewind it. Things can get twisted, reshaped, even completely made up. And the crazy part is it can happen without the person even realizing it.
So it's not always about lying or being intentionally deceitful.
Exactly.
It's just how our brains work sometimes, especially with traumatic memories.
Right. And there's a ton of research out there about how unreliable eyewitness testimony can be.
So like in this case, how much of what Jane Doe remembers is completely accurate?
Exactly.
So let's break down what she's actually saying happened.
Okay.
She claims that both Jay-Z and Diddy assaulted her at this party back in 2000.
Those are some serious accusations.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
And, we got to acknowledge how serious those are.
For sure.
But at the same time, the source we're working with here, it points out that Jane Doe herself admits there are some things that don't quite add up in her story.
Like what?
Well, for example, her dad, right?
Yeah.
He remembers things differently than she does about certain details.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and then there's this whole thing about another big celebrity who she says was at the party.
Okay.
But there's some doubt about whether that person was actually there.
Ah, so like were they, weren't they? It just adds to the whole mystery, right?
It does.
And it makes you think, how much can we rely on memory, especially when it's about something so traumatic that happened so long ago?
It's a huge question.
Now, on the flip side, Jay-Z, he's completely denying everything.
Yeah.
Calls the allegations totally false, and he's even gone so far as to criticize Jane Doe's lawyer publicly.
That's a bold move.
It is, right?
Yeah.
I mean, when you're dealing with accusations as serious as this,
Yeah.
public statements like that, they can backfire big time. We're talking potential legal trouble, like defamation.
Right, and for a defamation case to stick, Jane Doe's lawyers would have to prove that Jay-Z was not only lying, but that he said those things to intentionally hurt her reputation.
So even if he's telling the truth, he could still get in trouble.
It's possible, yeah.
That's wild. So we've got these accusations, these denials, and this whole legal battle brewing.
Mm-hmm.
But hold on, it's been over 20 years since this supposed incident happened.
A long time.
Can they even take legal action after all this time?
Well, that's where statutes of limitations come in. These laws basically set deadlines for different kinds of lawsuits.
Okay.
Now, sometimes there are exceptions, like for sexual assault cases, especially if the victim was a minor at the time.
I see.
So it really depends on where this case is filed and what the laws are in that specific place.
Gotcha.
It's definitely possible that a lawsuit could still happen.
So let's say it does go to court.
Yeah.
After all this time, how do you even figure out the truth?
It all comes down to evidence, right? Like, can they find any witnesses who can back up Jane Doe's story?
Right.
Is there any physical evidence, even from way back then, that could support her claims? Her legal team, they've got to build a strong case if they want to convince a jury.
That sounds like a tough job.
Yeah, it's definitely an uphill battle for sure.
And it's not just about the legal side of things either, right? You have to think about the impact this is having on everyone involved.
Oh, absolutely.
Even if nothing is proven in court,
Right.
reputations can be ruined.
Yeah.
And there's the financial cost of all this. And let's not forget the emotional toll it's taking on everyone.
It's a lot to handle, for sure.
This case is a good reminder that we're not just talking about abstract legal arguments here. We're talking about real people and their lives.
Absolutely.
And it makes you think about how our legal system tries to balance things out.
Right.
Like, how do we make sure someone who's been wronged can speak up?
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, how do we protect people from false accusations?
That's the challenge, right? Finding that balance.
Yeah. And it's something the courts are always wrestling with.
Definitely.
So as we watch this case unfold, what should we be looking out for?
Well, I think the big takeaway here is this. Memory is a tricky thing.
Yeah.
Time can really mess with your perception of events. And finding justice, well, it's rarely a simple process.
That's the truth.
This whole case makes us face some uncomfortable realities and ask some tough questions. Like, how do we handle situations where the truth is murky and hard to pin down?
It's a question we all need to think about. This case, it brings up some huge issues about truth, memory, and justice.
Right.
What do you all think about this? It's a conversation we need to be having.